Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinators Pitch Stop. We are back with Words That Liberate with Laura. Now, we have a very exciting show for you today. Say goodbye to the paralyzing effect of how and give a warm welcome to a nicer way of getting things done. Today, you are going to be free to go full speed on getting your tasks completed with an empowered ease because Laura Burkey is going to liberate us once and for all from the how trap. She's about to drop some word power wisdom that'll make you wonder why you didn't think of this sooner. Today, you will learn how to get away from the disempowering impact of the word how. Laura, welcome to the show, and please take it away.
Hey, Chris. Yeah. I saw something, in my many years of coaching individuals. I saw a pattern happening in language, in our dialogue over and over and over that really keyed me into what stops people, what keeps people from accomplishing what they want to accomplish, whether that's the experience they want to have in something or actually achieving the thing they want to. And what that word was the word how. So I'm going to go back to how we were all taught to get ourselves ready and in pursuit of a goal. We were taught, identify the thing you want. In fact, and there's many different models, but simply, we were taught, well, what is it you want? Describe it, define it. And then some people even say, measure it, put time stamps and goals on it, all of that kind of stuff. Ask yourself, is this achievable? Some psychological analysis about it, whatever. And then how are you going to do it? Ultimately, it was, what do you want? And then now, how are you? What are the steps you're going to take to achieve losing that weight, starting that company, saving that money, sending your kids to college, buying the third car, whatever. And this is the place I, myself included, found this is where all the wind comes out of the sails and they're stuck dead in the water. Do you relate with that at all?
Sometimes, like if I'm up against like something new that I haven't done before, and I sit there and I say, "Well, how am I going to do that?" Definitely some hesitation. If it seems too big, I'll do that as well. Like, well, how do I do that? And then you get into those steps, like breaking it down, and then once you get to a small enough one, the how becomes pretty obvious. But what are the things that you found with
Okay, what I personally found with how and what I observed happens for lots of people with how. I'm going to say that, but I first have to say there are plenty of people who asking themselves and thinking, how am I going to save money for college? How am I going to afford that third car or lose that 50 pounds? That works for them. There are some people writing it all out, scheduling it all, and being extremely finite about each action taken, whatever. It does work for some people. And those people would not be tuning in to this episode right now, probably. So that does work and that's fine. But for those people who find that when they do I'm thinking about the thing I want and I'm thinking about how I can do it, but nothing's happening. Why didn't I start tomorrow? Why didn't I do it? I've been talking about it for weeks. I have it written down. Then you are one where how is not presenting as an empowered word for you. Okay. So then what's the fix? And before I tell you the fix, I've got to say, why does how have this sometimes negative impact on us where we aren't effective? We aren't energized. We don't feel full force moving forward. Yes. Would you say sometimes you think like, I know the how, I figured out the how, here I stand or here I sit and I've done nothing about it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely
not
had some of
uncommon
it.
at all. Even for me, that is not an uncommon thing. And one reason may be because you've used the word how, and that's what how can do. And so now I want to explain that in my work and my interest in words is that we all have a mental understanding, an intellectual understanding of what words are and how to use them. But what a lot of people aren't plugged into, and this is what I've gleaned over my career as a coach, is there's a visceral definition to the word. So for a lot of people, when they get to the part of, well, this is how I'm going to do it, or they even ask themselves, how am I going to do it? The body is having a different experience than the mind. The mind feels clear about it. Well, you're going to get up every day at 6 o'clock and you're going to put your running clothes on and you're going to go for a run. That's how you're going to lose weight. But the body has a different experience, which is when it thinks the how, get up every day at 6 a.m. and then have to do this and do that. It feels like it feels dreadful. That feels hard. That feels uncomfortable. That feels like it's going to take forever. And that is what wins. That's what wins. So I hit my snooze button and I don't go running on Monday. I hit my snooze button. I don't go running on Tuesday. Okay. So there is another way to approach. We'll just stick with the example of losing some weight. That's a common desire for people. And certainly at the new year, that's usually like people kind of dust that one off and say, here we go again, start of 2025, I'm going to get healthier, right? So here's instead of asking what you want and how you're going to do it, try this instead. So yes, what do you want? What is it you want in health or physical condition? What is it that you are seeking? Well, I'm of a certain age. I want my body's starting to feel stiff, or my muscles are atrophying or whatever. And I want to look fitter, younger. I want more energy. That's the what. Okay. So you go all the way to the wall with that. Really think about what you want. The second question should not be how or when at all. The second question should be, why do you want that? Why do you want to lose the weight, look fitter, be stronger, lose that amount of things, or even run, of all the other ways that you could spend your physical activity? Why? Why do you want that? And go all the way to the wall with that. Really just have that conversation with you. Well, here's why I want it. And then when you've done that, the last thing to do is then say, well, what are some ways I can achieve this? Because when you fully express the what you want and the why you want it, you will find out a whole lot more. There's so much more dimensionality to it than just, I feel tight in my clothes, I want to lose weight, I got to go run. Not a lot of empowerment in that. But when you really flesh out the what and you really connect to the why, if you've ever heard the expression, Chris, the stronger the why, the higher you fly, which simply means you have much more fortification, much more energy to pursue and go for that thing. Then you ask the ways, and that's where when you ask, what are ways I could do this versus how, you are a natural creator. That's what you were born to do. Then you tap that spring in you and you just start listing, well, one way is I could get up in the mornings and run. Another way is I could run in the afternoon. Another way is I can run only on the weekends. And on Mondays and Wednesdays, I can go walk. And on Thursdays, I can do yoga. Another way is I can start dance lessons with my partner. Another way I can do it, and you will come up with this list of ways. And from there, it's almost kid in the candy store, because you get to pick all of these ways could get me there. Now I get to just pick the best one for me, the one that feels the most exciting, the one that feels most energizing. Easy, effortless.
So what about the word how, Laura? Would you say that kind of stifles that sometimes? Because, it's true, when we say we want to lose weight, how do you do that? Well, you go to the gym or you do whatever. But when you say what ways, and then you just came up with all these other ways, what do you think is the mechanism behind?
What I believe is that we have a long history of conditioning about the word how to do something. And my belief is that when we think, well, how am I going to do it? Our body and our brain even, they think there's a singular how. There's really one real way to get this. You know this, and I know this right now in 2024. No, there's millions of ways. But that's still kind of new for the old conditioning that we all have embedded in our collective mind and consciousness. So there's so much more to say about why how has this hold on us, because we also come from a long, long history of there were only few people who knew. Experts, right? Like the doctors know, the priests know, the teachers know, but nobody else knows. And that certainly isn't what we're living today. There's, everybody has access to any information. So, but our body still has that in us, that, at least first it does, that but there is a right way. And not for a lot of people have liberated themselves from this, but not everybody has. And so how can do that? It just, when you think, how am I going to do it? Your body is going to feel a bit, I don't know. And I liken it to, and I had said this before in a conversation with you. It's like, you've got to find the one single answer, the needle in the haystack. You got to find the one right way you're going to lose this weight. And that's stress inducing. But when you say, no, there's many needles, there's many ways you can do this, then you free yourself from this old construct or paradigm of thinking that, well, no, there's the right way and I still haven't figured it out because here I am out of shape and I still haven't pursued and finished and accomplished what I wanted to. So it is truly liberating to ask yourself ways.
No, but as you were saying that, I just remembered a lot of those. Especially there was a very popular line of books back in the 90s, and the entire self help section used to be. I mean, there's a lot of different titles, but it used to be how to do this, how to do that, and there was a very popular line that was X thing, and it was for dummies. So it was almost like, if you ask how, now you're challenging your own intelligence as well, because they've got, these other books that say, oh, well, if you don't do it this way, you're a dummy.
Yeah. So all I will say, just to kind of reinforce this and double down on it, is you are the master of your domain. You do get to choose how you will do it, right? You do get to choose it. And so in doing that, well, how am I ultimately going to do this? I get to choose the way that I'm going to pursue it, the way that makes the most sense to me. And I like to say this about all the words that I share here. I am not broadcasting and saying to people, don't use this word ever. I'm not saying it's a bad word. I'm not even saying it's an ineffective word all the time. I think there are cases that it is ineffective and disempowering. Please notice that if you feel disempowered after you have asked yourself, or you're talking with somebody and you're using the word, how are we going to do this? And you are noticing the energy leaving you, the creative spark diminishing in you, rewind and come back at it. And instead of saying, how are we going to do this? Say, what are some ways we can do this? And just notice almost instantly, the energy comes back up. The spark is wild and alive, and you'll be, I think, quite pleased with what you produce after that.
No, you're absolutely right, Laura. It's interesting. I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this mostly happens with more complex matters, because I mean, when we ask ourselves how to make a sandwich, I mean, nobody really stops and says, "Oh, I'm not going to do that." But when you say, "How am I going to?" Seems like and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost as if the more steps something has, or the more steps that need to happen for something to be done, then when you say how, it becomes more overwhelming, because your brain, like you said, is only looking for one. Whereas when you say, what are the ways that can happen? And then, yeah, I mean, that it does definitely seem more empowering. I mean, when you say, like, I want to go on a trip. Well, okay, how do I get my passport? It's almost like, there's a little bit of resistance there. I've done it thousands of times now. Well, not thousands, but I've done it dozens of times now. I've done it a few times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I know the process. But, whenever, even now when I think about, well, how am I going to do that? There's still a teeny bit of resistance. And I do know how to do it.
Yeah. And I believe you were speaking to the age old feeling of what how is, all of what has accumulated over the years of understanding that word. So I'm opening the exit door and saying, kind of exit, come out of there. Yes. How do you make your grandma's famous brownies? How do you get to your house? You're throwing a party. Here's how you're going to get here. Sure. All those things. But when you say ways, the body responds differently. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for it to relax, open up, lighten up. And then I will end with this. And it's so true. And many people have said it. So I'm just using this person because I was so happy when I heard him say it. But when Steve Jobs had given a commencement speech, I believe, to Stanford back in, like, I don't know, somewhere in the early 20, like 2011, 13, 14, maybe. I don't know. Maybe even before that. I don't remember when he passed away, but sometime soon before he passed away, he gave a commencement speech, and he had talked about, helping, what you do at a commencement speech, encouraging them, to go on with their life, be creative, do all the things. And he said, you'll only know, these aren't his exact words, but he spoke to, you can't know the how you're going to achieve what you set out to achieve. You can't know how that's going to happen. You can only know how the thing happened when you look back and you see that's how it happened. That's how it happens. So you can't know how you might become the greatest author in the world. Let's just use that as an example. That's your dream as a graduate. You can't know how you're going to be a top, what do you call it? The New York Times bestseller, how you're going to have the number one. You can't know how that's going to happen today. But you can make the decision, I'm going to do that. And you can go set the goals to do that. And you'll only know on the day that you actually see your name on the New York Times best-selling list of books. You look back and go, this is how I got here. You could never know all those steps before. And that is what I'm going to close with. That's why. How is it's a false illusion in us to believe we can know how anything's going to happen. And you spoke to it. It's to these bigger things. What we're offering here with this word how is much more useful for the bigger things like setting goals and, how you're going to what's going to happen, how you go about life is this is going to be much better use that than these small little day-to-day things, even though you can practice on those also and just see if you don't get the hit.
Excellent. Well, Laura, it's been liberating as always. And thank you so much for being on the show. Again, thank you to all our listeners. And, once again, if you can't find that inspiration or motivation for yourself today, maybe just try to be that motivation or inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.